I guess, we'll start by, introducing Mr. Willis. Obviously, anybody who's tuning in, if you're watching this, you should know who I am. Obviously, Mark Frisco, Chairman of the Board of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as Chairman of our Business Advisory Committee. The purpose of this video, and we haven't come up with a formal name for it yet, but informally, we've been calling it the Chamber Chat, and I think that's a really good informal name because that's what we want this to be. We want this to be an ongoing conversation, just an informal conversation where we can get some updates from county government, and we can kind of educate our membership and beyond with what's happening in county government, and how that may impact the business community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Willis, our county administrator. And Mark, if you could just give us some background on yourself,
Okay.
how you started in county government and how you landed in the county administrator seat. And for those that don't know, what you do as county administrator, which I've learned is pretty much everything.
Well, I'm still learning.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know that most people may not know this, but I'm from Calvert County. My grandparents and my parents and my aunts and uncles, and they're all born and raised in this county. And I'm baptized at Our Lady Star of the Sea. I was lucky enough, both my wife and I are graduates of the Calvert County school system, as are my three children, which was timing because I was active duty Marine Corps. So I grew up, graduated here. I joined the Marine Corps, spent 20 years serving in that capacity. I was stationed at the Pentagon my last 2 years, and it really allowed me to buy what is now my place of residence. At that point, I built my house myself with my own hands, with permits, by the way. I didn't know anything about permits back then, but I learned. But I started with the county government because I was looking. I did not want that drive back to DC, and so I looked for something at whatever level. I retired from the Marine Corps so I could move into the county government and not, I wasn't going to start at the top. They hired me to be the division chief of a new division, which was fleet maintenance and management. And literally, I have been working for the county for the last 20 years. And my progression to this position was, one, I set high goals for myself without the realization that you don't know if you're going to achieve them, but you set them, right? And, so I had highway maintenance, or fleet maintenance, highway maintenance. I worked directly with and oversaw the financial aspect of project management, both enterprise funds, water, sewer, and solid waste. And then one day they asked me to be the director of planning and zoning. And I said, well, I can't even spell planning and zoning. So, but you learn that, and that's very exciting for me. And I think that's probably the best job I could have had to prepare me in the bigger picture for the role that I'm in now. And that's the county administrator. The reason I say that is, I learned leadership from the Marine Corps. I'm a leadership student at heart, but you can be the great leader, but if you don't have an understanding of those that you're trying to lead, and specifically, the planning and the economic value of what we have or need here in the county, I didn't understand that before, and I have a much better understanding of it now, which I think is perfect that we're now having this conversation, because I think I do understand the need to have that direct partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the businesses, no matter how big or small they are in Calvert County. So yeah. That's my claim to fame. I'm here. I don't back up. I move left, right, and forward, and I need help. So I'm looking for it.
Awesome. Well, see, I love that. And I love the fact that obviously you've been involved in so many different departments, within the county, and just a perspective that gives you from your current seat. And, I look at you as being a viable resource for the citizens of Calvert County and the businesses in Calvert County. And, obviously I've leaned on you probably more than you'd like, with my own situations that I've had throughout the years. And one thing that's great about that is I've always found you to be supportive and, to be helpful. And I think that's what the business community needs. So, is there anything specific as we're jumping off this chamber chat
Yeah.
that you would like to update the business community on? I know that obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm sure things are crazy throughout all of your departments, but I think first and foremost, I'd love to give you the opportunity to speak directly to the business community.
You know, I was having this discussion with one of the commissioners this morning, and as a result of this pandemic, we're going to be able to go back in time and we're going to say that everybody has been through something in their life, whether it's the birth of a child, death of a family member, a new job, a marriage, whatever that is. Those are situations that impact you, and you remember those forever. People are going to remember this pandemic forever because of the impact that it had on us from twofold, not just collectively, because we're all in it together. We don't have a choice, but it's impacted all of us individually as well. And we're going to come out of this. And I'm a very my thought process is that everything that happens to me makes me better, because it makes me more aware of what I need to do to not let this impact me in the future. So we're going to go forward, and the biggest thing that it's going to tell us is that I don't know that you're ever always ready for everything thrown at you, but the thing that you have to do is communicate. And our economic community is certainly, it's one of the hardest hit. Businesses will go out of business, and that's sad because it takes so much effort to have a strong business anyway. There's always something eating at your business. And what I've learned is that, if we're not part of the solution as a county, then we're part of the problem. And I think I realize that. And I think we've learned a lot, and Lord forbid, I don't want to have to repeat this pandemic again, but I think we're smarter for it, and we're going to be a tighter community for it.
I'm glad that you bring that up. So from my perspective, there's something I always say, and I say it's not our circumstances that define us, rather our the way that we respond to our circumstances, our reaction to our circumstances. And I think in the middle of what's going on, that can't be more true. And speaking to those businesses, if any businesses are watching this, that are struggling and need help, and maybe are lying on the edge of having to close their doors. From my perspective, as chairman of the Business Advisory Board, or the Business Advisory Committee, chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, I want to hear from those people. And I think that that's one of those things that, if you're struggling and, it kind of feels like everything's falling down around you, you oftentimes don't reach out for help until it's too late. And I firmly believe that the Chamber and the Business Advisory Committee can definitely help you, put our heads together, come up with a strategy to maybe get your business back in motion, or find a way to operate under where we're at currently. So for some businesses, restrictions on, events and gatherings and all that stuff can be really challenging. But I've also seen lots of businesses innovate. And I think that one of the things that needs to happen is those businesses need to help each other innovate, and spread that around. And that's one of the things that we can encourage and do as a Chamber of Commerce. So if you're struggling, reach out to us for sure. Pertaining to COVID-19 and the fact that we've learned a lot through this, do you think that we're going to have, and I know this is a crazy question to ask, remember it's a casual chat, but do you think we're going to have things that stick with us even after the pandemic that could be restrictive of our business community moving forward?
So, having come from planning and zoning and being that department that, has to enforce regulations that and I say this because staff, we don't come up with the regulations, we enforce the regulations. And do we always agree with them, or do we always think that they're the right thing to do? Because we're the folks on the ground communicating with the businesses, with the homeowners. I think it's going to really make us smarter from a common sense standpoint is what really makes sense when it comes to zoning. I think that as we go into the zoning rewrite, from a business perspective on how what we're able to allow businesses to do, I think we have to not, we can't hamper them in any safe way. As long as it's still safe and it's good for the public, to allow the businesses to do more and more, whether it's more seating outside, whether it's different organizations inside of a particular business. And the restaurants come to mind because even though for some retail they could keep going, but for the restaurants, it's like, well, hold up, we've got to, worry about how close they are and whether their servers wearing a mask or inside, outside. Some businesses are just set up for outside service as well. But we have helped those businesses that didn't really have that outside capability to move outside as well. And I think that that's something that we've learned is that we have to, don't wait for the business to come and ask us what we can do. Let's try to come up with it and reach out to the business, say, hey, look, try this.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, I think that, especially in a changing environment with like what's going on with COVID and just in general, in a zoning ordinance change in general, just getting the feedback from businesses as to what their needs are is extremely important. And, one of the challenging things, and hopefully this video will help reach some of those businesses and pull out some of that information. But as well as I do, business people are busy and it's really hard to get their opinion on the front end, and then oftentimes they tend to be very opinionated on the back end. And anything that we can do to get in front of that is extremely beneficial. So,
but Mark, that's an interesting comment because that's exactly the same thing with the agricultural community. If you think about it, if you want to hold a town hall meeting with the agricultural community, it's really difficult in the spring to at least early fall because they're in the fields, they're in the barns, they're doing something outside and they can't really get to you. But we had to learn how to work around that. And I think this is an opportunity to see exactly what did we learn and, how we're going to make that practical, not in the next event, but between now and the next event. Right. What makes sense now that we learned, and let's keep that going because, everybody knows that, monies that are generated through economic vitality within the county, and I'm not talking about monies that we get from, a couple of the utilities. Obviously, everybody knows I'm talking about, the power utilities or the natural resource utilities that we have in the county. But I'm talking about the businesses. We have to really treat that business group, that economic side of that in a way that we depend on them. And we need to treat them as if we depend on them as much as we depend on anything else. And that's, if I have a single, and I'm not saying it because I'm talking to you today. You could give Kelly Schlegel, Director of Economic Development, a call right now and ask her what Mark's feelings are about economic development within this county. And she's going to tell you that I'm not worried about what's happening a year from now. I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the business community 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Right.
In my 80s, I don't think I'm going to be in this position when I'm in my 80s, but I need to make sure that from an economic standpoint, that I continue to nurture the seed that Terry Shannon helped put in place. I don't want to fall backwards on that. I want to contribute to that going forward. And I think that's going to be my focus going forward.
I think that your willingness to have this conversation and ongoing conversations shows that, and I think that's what it takes is just having a method of which that we can, a channel of communication where hopefully, the chamber can bring something to you, to help you be proactive in instances such as the zoning ordinance in the business community and all that kind of stuff. I think just having these conversations is what's going to help make that happen.
So, Mark, I will put pressure on myself by saying this, and there's no problem. And I don't want you to ever hesitate. I'm either going to find the answer or I'm going to tell you I don't have it, and we'll look for an answer. But, I had this discussion yesterday with both the director and the deputy director of economic development. I meet with them every 2 weeks. Thursday, we discuss the sine wave of their trials and tribulations within economic development. And, I talked about the triangle of communication internal to the county. And this is important, and I will probably develop this more, but the importance of this triangle is that the three points of that triangle are so that we have an understanding when we're trying to help the business community, whether that be folks building homes or building commercial buildings. I don't care what it is, because one is dependent on the other and vice versa. I mean, if I don't give you people to shop at your stores, the stores aren't going to survive. If you don't give me a store to shop at, nobody's going to want to live there. At least not to the degree that we want them. So the triangle is this. It's economic development. It is, and so let me do it this way. And I just thought this as far as orienting the triangle, right? So at the bottom of that triangle is planning and zoning on one point, public works on the other point. And the reason for that is they're the two biggest reviewers that provide assistance going forward, right? They're involved in all of this. The point at the top is economic development. And, I don't think that as a county that we have always looked at the base of the triangle pointing towards the economic vitality.
It's been flipped upside down.
Yeah. It's been the other way. And I said, so I'm developing this thought in my head, and I had a pretty extensive, of course, they're all excited, right? Because they're economic development. That's what they want. And they're between a rock and a hard place, because we as a county say, economic development, go out there. If you encourage them, they will come, but then on the other hand, we say, well, look, you work for us, you don't work for them. Well, we can't have it both ways. They have to have that professional relationship with your organizations. And that makes it easier for us. So that's 3 points. So if you look at those 3 points, each of those points have their own feelers that go out. Economic development obviously is going to be working with the developers, the folks that have the vision that they want something. But planning and zoning, for example, because they have the long range planning, they have the town center master plan responsibility, they're going to be talking to the folks that need to see if that can even happen by zoning, for example. Do we need to make zoning changes? And then public works is in there, because you can't do anything physically on the ground until all of that stormwater management and all that ties together. And for me, I plan on sitting right in the middle of the triangle. And that's going to be